Hello, listeners, and happy belated Valentine's Day. This week we have a file here that tells the story of love and obsession. It follows Avery, a sweet girl, who spends her time dressing up soon-to-be brides for their big day, and her boyfriend Landon, a police officer who loves Avery very much. The two are young and just so in love. So when Avery starts receiving gifts, notes, and hints, she is thrilled, believing that she may soon join the ranks of her clientele and purchase the wedding dress of her dreams. But as you all know, these files never really have a happy ending. So let's listen in to the story of Avery. Strap in tight, the trials are about to begin.
Avery hurries out to her car at 7:49 a.m. She has to be at work at 8 a.m. Luckily, the dress shop that she works at is only a few blocks away. As she walks through the parking lot of her apartment complex, Avery notices a bright red object on the windshield of her car. Squinting her eyes as she gets closer, she can see that it is one single long-stemmed red rose. A look of surprise and a slight smile touches the edge of her lips. Her boyfriend of 11 months, Landon, must have brought it, she thinks. Landon is a cop at the local police station, and the couple had been getting very serious. Also, it is February, and Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Avery picks up the rose, and as she does, she pricks her finger on a remaining thorn left on the stem.
Ouch!
A drop of blood rises to rest on her index finger. Instinctively, Avery puts her finger in her mouth to relieve the pain. The rose is beautiful, she thinks, but she wished the thorns had at least all been removed. Opening her car door and placing the rose in the driver's seat, she decided she would tell Landon that when she thanked him. By the time she had gotten to work, the pain of the thorn prick had all but faded away, and Avery got on with her day. That morning's meeting was the usual runaround of sales numbers and goals for each person. Then there were the appointments to go over. The day was going to be booked with very few slots for walk-ins, and lunches and breaks would need to be coordinated. And that was that. The doors opened, and most of that day was a blur. After Avery's third dress consult for the day, her supervisor informed her that she needed to go on a quick 15-minute break. She walked to the employee room, grabbed a bottle of water, and texted Landon.
Hey, thank you for the beautiful rose on my car this morning.
She added a heart emoji to the end of the text.
What does that mean?
I am saying, thank you, silly. But there was a big thorn left on it and I pricked my finger. I need a kiss to make me feel better.
Avery added a sad face emoji.
I'll never turn down a kiss, but I didn't leave a rose on your car. I had the early morning shift today, and I was at the station at 4 a.m.
Oh, well, I guess I have a secret admirer. Are you jealous?
Always. Remember, I have practice for the fights tonight, so I won't see you until this weekend.
Okay, well, I might have to invite my secret admirer over if I get bored.
Landon sent a gif of Robert Downey Jr. crossing his arms and doing an eye roll. She added a winky face emoji and closed her phone. Her break was over, and she needed to get back on the sales floor for her next appointment. That night, Avery came home to her empty apartment. She ate a bowl of cereal for dinner and watched reruns of RuPaul's Drag Race until she fell asleep in her bed. Her alarm blared in her ear, and she began to panic. She knew that sound. It was her final alarm. The one that blares as loud as possible and is her indication that she better get her butt moving or she will be late for work. Hopping out of bed, she rushed around the house like a madwoman as she got ready for work. She smiled at the post-it note on her mirror as she brushed her teeth. The note said, "Have a good day, my love." She wondered when Landon had put that there. She didn't remember seeing it yesterday. In fact, she didn't even remember hearing him come over last night or this morning after the fights. When he did that, he usually would wake her to let her know he was at the house, so she didn't freak out when she woke up to a strange noise in the house or a man in her bed. Spitting out toothpaste, she looked back up at the note and scrunched her nose up in adoration. They often left notes like this around each other's houses. Her drawing of a koala bear holding a heart with the saying, "I can't bear to be without you," was still on the fridge from last week. The thought of that horrendous drawing and the way Landon adored it made her chuckle to herself. She turned the faucet off and checked the time. She panicked. She had to get out the door now to make it in time for opening. She would miss the morning meeting, but that wasn't too horrible. Her supervisor could fill her in later. Avery made it to work just in time for the doors to open to the public. Her supervisor shot her a stern look, and Avery mouthed, "I'm sorry," to her as she walked to the employee room to put her things in her cubby. Her supervisor just crossed her arms and rolled her eyes, making Avery choke back a laugh. Her boss had perfectly depicted the gif Landon had sent to her just the day before. Reaching the employee room, she hurriedly put away her things and placed on her name tag. And the whirlwind of a day began. The bridal shop itself was a large chain bridal gown store that was always busy, and she had already helped 3 clients before noon when she was assigned her 4th bride of the day. Avery was in the racks looking for the perfect drop-waist sweetheart neckline gown with lace appliques. It was going to look just perfect on her client. She just knew it. But finding the exact dress she had in her mind was something of a struggle. She knew it was here. She had seen it just the other day. She sorted through the white bridal gowns in their clear garment bags, when suddenly she stopped dead in her tracks. Right there in front of her, Avery saw a bright red string tied to one of the hangers. It stood out so vividly amongst the various shades of white that surrounded it. She grabbed the string and followed it down. It weaved through garment bags, and her heart raced for reasons she couldn't quite place. She could feel her face getting flush and her breathing amp up to a whole other level, almost as if she was midway through a particularly hard jog. The string looped around the sterling metal bottom support of the rack and attached to a cream-colored envelope. Avery pulled the item into her hand and slowly opened it. Inside the envelope was a white card with a message written on it in red ink. "You would look beautiful in this gown." There was no name, nothing was signed, just the red marker bleeding into the white card stock paper.
Who left this here?
Avery thought to herself. Standing and following the string back to its place of origin on the hanger, Avery gasped out loud and cupped her hand over her mouth. The gown the envelope was attached to was one of her favorite dresses in the store. For a fashion event last week, she had tried on that exact dress. All the employees would come in and pick a dress from the new line for the spring collection, and this dress right here had fit her perfectly. It accentuated her curves, and the satin train only hung modestly behind her. It was in that moment when she had tried it on and modeled it for her coworkers that she knew this was the one, the dress that she was to be married in. She pursed her lips as tears began to well up in her eyes. Her body flooded with so many emotions, and she had no time or outlet to even think on what any of this meant. She removed the string and folded it, placing it inside the envelope and then tucking the note under her arm. she would try and figure out what was going on later, because right now, there was a soon-to-be bride looking for the perfect dress. Avery had finished up with her client. She had found the exact dress she was initially looking for, and her client beamed when she tried it on. The mother of the bride had even began to cry, seeing her little girl all grown up and in the wedding dress she was to be married in. After some thank yous and oh my gods, Avery was able to upsell a few more accessories to go along with the dress purchase. She was good at her job, and after that sell, she deserved a lunch break. She clocked out and went to the employee room, pulling in her other co-workers and telling them about the envelope attached to the red string. But no one knew who it could have been from. Avery had her suspicions, and a few of her co-workers did as well, but there just wasn't enough time in the break to really get to the meat and potatoes of it all. Before she knew it, her break was over. For the rest of the day, she thought of the dress and the note. As her thoughts got more and more abstract, they kept landing on one thing. And she thought it was preposterous. There just wasn't any way. But everything just kept coming back to it. Landon was going to propose, and this was his ploy. Even more, her co-workers were in on it. So she decided to test the waters a bit.
Hey babe, how's your day?
Busy. You?
Avery took some time as she thought of what to say.
I found an interesting note today that was attached to my favorite bridal gown.
Interesting how?
It said I would look beautiful in that wedding dress.
Well, I agree you would look beautiful in any dress. Or no dress. Actually, I vote naked.
Avery couldn't help but smile to herself. But if this was part of a big proposal, she didn't want to ruin it.
Oh, that was sweet. Not the naked part, but it is my favorite gown, so I'd love to wear it.
All in good time, my love. Listen, I've got a call. I have to head out. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, be safe. Love you.
Love you more.
Avery finished her day and headed home for another night alone. As she walked up to her apartment on the second floor, she noticed some rose petals were scattered up the stairs. She unintentionally followed the path of red petals as it led her to her own doorstep. Her heart began to race, and her eyes grew large. Beads of sweat began to form on her arms as her breathing once again grew quicker. With a shaking hand, she unlocked the door and walked inside her apartment. Her lights were on, but were set to the dim setting, making the room feel intimate. Avery looked to the ground and saw there were even more red rose petals. She followed them to her living room as thoughts of proposals danced through her head. And she couldn't help but wonder if Landon was at the end of this rose petal path. Her heart beat harder as she followed the roses down the hall to her bedroom.
Landon?
She called out. Her skin was flushed with excitement and anxiety as she walked into her bedroom and flipped on the light. There, on her bed in a pile of roses, was the wedding gown. The very same dress the note had been attached to early this afternoon. A slim-fitting full lace gown with a medium train that cascaded down the side of her bed to the floor. Sticking out of the top of the dress was something unexpected. It was the head of a wooden doll. Avery reached down with both hands and plucked the toddler-sized doll out of the dress. As she got a closer look at it, she realized it looked kind of like her. It was carved out of wood and stood about 2 feet tall. And it was dressed in a matching wedding gown with brown eyes, long brown hair, and a dimple on the right cheek, just like her own. An odd feeling swept her. This was all romantic, but a realistic doll was just creepy. She placed the doll back on the bed and pulled out her phone, calling Landon. When he didn't answer, she texted him.
Hey, what is going on? I don't know if this was supposed to be romantic or what, but I don't get it, and I don't like it. Where did you get the doll?
What are you talking about? I'm on another call right now dealing with a dispute.
A fucking doll, Landon. The one in the wedding dress.
Avery, I didn't put any of that there. Get out of the apartment and call 911. I'm on my way.
Panic-stricken, Avery ran to the front door. Her phone rang and she looked to the caller ID to see if it was Landon calling her. But the name that popped up on the screen said Secret Admirer. With shaking hands, Avery declines the call. Her phone vibrates in her hand, and she looked down to see she had just gotten a text message. She opened it and read the message as she rounded the corner of the hallway to her living room.
Hello, Avery. Did you like my presents?
Who are you? And what do you want with me?
I want you. Of course.
Well, I called the cops, and they're on their way, asshole.
Avery lied. She hasn't been able to call anyone yet, but Landon was a cop and he was on his way, and probably calling for backup.
You look so beautiful, even when you are scared.
Avery stopped and looked around the apartment. All the blinds were shut, and the front door was even closed. Without wasting another moment, she charged to the door so she could deadbolt it and lock whoever this creep was out. With her back against the door, she looked around the apartment. Peering into the kitchen through the breakfast nook that separated the living room from the cooking area, she let out a whimper. There wasn't anyone there. Gripping her phone tight now in her hand, Avery looked down the hall she had just exited from. There were only 2 rooms in her apartment that had doors, her bedroom and the bathroom. Everything else was an open concept. She went into her head as the fear of the situation took over.
What if Landon was right? What if I should have left my apartment? But what if they were waiting outside for me, just beyond this door, ready to pounce and, I don't know, abduct me?
She thinks. Building up courage, Avery stepped away from the front door and began to slowly walk down the hall, sneaking glances behind her every few steps. Softly, she pads her way down the hall to the only room she hasn't been in yet, the bathroom. She reached the door and placed her hand on the top of the lever handle, slowly depressing it, trying her level best to not make a single noise. She could once again feel that fear build up inside her. It clawed at her insides like a trapped animal pushing its way through every nerve. She tried to fight it. She tried to hold it back, to keep her wits about her. But she just knew. She knew that behind this door, there would be whomever was tormenting her. It was too much. The thought of this creep in her house, leaving her messages, staging her bedroom, and invading her personal space, sent her over the edge. With a primal scream, and with as much force as she could muster, she pushed the bathroom door open. Ready to do what? Fight, run, die? The door swung back violently, slamming into the wall and vibrating as it made its way back to her. And Avery stood there staring into nothing but darkness. She raised a trembling hand to the wall and slid it upwards to locate and turn on the light. She screams as the light floods the room. The entire bathroom mirror is covered with red lipstick writing in large letters, "You'll be mine." Her phone buzzes as she begins to slowly step backwards, her eyes wide with fear. Pulling up her phone, she checks the name to see that she had another text from her secret admirer.
It's only a matter of time now.
Oh, thank God. There has to be Landon.
Avery thinks. She runs through the living room sobbing and unlocks the deadbolt, yanking open the door. But the figure at the door is not Landon. Avery began to step back, her jaw slack and trembling, her breaths coming in short bursts. A smaller framed man matched her stride, walking into her apartment. On his body, he adorned a long black trench coat. A wide-brimmed hat sat atop his head, and his face was covered by a black ski mask. Only his eyes could be seen, and they burned with a sadist's desire. Avery screamed at the top of her lungs when she notices the axe he is holding at his side. She turns and pushes down hard as she attempts to run away from this man, slipping on the runner rug and falling down hard to her hands and knees. She turns, fighting through the pain, and begins to shuffle backwards. The man stepping closer with every second, his pace slow and deliberate, and something of a smile can be made out through the ski mask as the skin around his eyes wrinkles and his cheeks rise. Avery's backwards attempt at fleeing is cut short when she slams into the breakfast nook, and he takes one more step towards her, levering the axe into his other hand, the blade resting slightly above his pointer finger. Without a word and without warning, the man swings the handle upwards above his head and comes down hard, his top hand quickly and smoothly sliding down the axe handle. Avery watches it all happen as if it were in slow motion, each movement taking a lifetime. The axe was barreling down at her now, and while her brain screamed for her to move, to flee, to do anything she could to save her own life, her body would not respond. She was frozen in fear. The gunshot rings through the apartment, and the axe-wielding maniac falls forward and onto Avery. Landon runs into the apartment and rolls the menace off of Avery, all the while screaming her name, wondering why she wasn't responding. His heart drops as the now dead man's body falls limply to the side. He was too late. The axe had made contact. It stuck straight out of Avery's chest, directly into her heart, and she laid there, still, eyes open, and looking up to Landon, the vacant expression almost accusatory, as if asking him why he took so long, why he let any of this happen to her. Landon begins screaming as a pool of blood from both Avery and her secret admirer form on the floor, the puddles touching and blending together. And in that, the final act, Avery and her secret admirer would be together, forever.